Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you're joining us from. I am Brook Lee, Senior Director of Community here at Rev.io, and welcome to our second edition of MSP Unfiltered. I have a guest from all the way across the pond today. We are going to have a great conversation. Today, we are going to be talking about tool stack analysis. I know it's not sexy, but it's got to be done, and it really can move the needle at your MSP. So we're going to kind of dive in on this one. I have a very special guest today, Mr. David Weeks, Vice President of are you enterprise over at Enable now?
Enterprise, yes, yes, correct, yeah.
He's joining us from all the way across the pond. I appreciate you, my friend. So give everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what we're going to talk about today, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, sure, appreciate that. David Weeks, I've been with Enable now for almost 20 years, actually. So a long time in the space.
That is a long time in this space, in the
That's a lot.
SaaS space, buddy.
I know, and it's like it's people say this all the time because they're like, "You haven't moved companies." I'm like, "No, because I love what I do, right? And I love the organization. I love our customers. And yeah, you know what? I mean, I've been lucky enough. I moved over to London from Canada about 2 years ago. But I still work globally around the world. I spend about 90% of my time on the road, meeting with service providers, whether a customer or not, kind of seeing how they look at the market, how we look at the market, where's that opportunity, where's that risk, right? And different areas that they're working on. Interestingly, yesterday I had a executive roundtable here in London. We had 14 different service providers in the room with just over $1 billion in revenue. Which
Holy
was
smokes.
yeah, it was really, really interesting. So great conversations around,
I bet. I'd
yeah,
love
like
to
they're
fly on the wall
struggling.
on that one. You'll
Oh,
have to debrief me on that conversation.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very
it was
interested.
it was mad. It was great, and it was like we got into AI, we got into cybersecurity, we got into all these areas, and a lot around the vendors and their tools and
Yep.
their stacks and interestingly, I think a lot of it, as we'll talk about today with the tool stack, the majority in the room were a buy and build strategy, right, through M&A. So they're
Okay.
all looking at vendor consolidation right now. So we
Yeah.
had a lot of those discussions in the room. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to today. I think it'll be excellent, as we kind of go through some key areas I think service providers should be looking at.
Absolutely. So today, just for everybody, we're going to sort of walk through sort of how you're going to evaluate your tool stack, some of the questions that you need to ask yourself, the people at your MSP. There's a lot more to that than just putting some stuff on a whiteboard. When we get done with the presentation today, we are going to have a spreadsheet for you guys to download. You know me, it's not gate kept, no email, no nothing. You're just going to be able to scan it and go get it. It is an interactive spreadsheet that's going to allow you to enter all the different tools that you have. It's going to do some really slick math for you on the back end and show you the actual cost of what that particular tool or solution is costing your MSP at the end of the year. So we're going to give you that as well. So everything that we're talking about, you're going to get a takeaway at the end. So let's dive into it. So again, I started it sort of with tool stack is not sexy. It's not, but it's a big line item at MSPs. And MSPs, we generally run very lean people wise. We kind of have just enough what we need to get it done. And I kind of want to start with your point. This is not what I was going to talk about, but because we have so many MSPs in our space now that are either merging, they're getting acquired by somebody else. And now you have people that have a multitude of tools and solutions. So how one MSP can say, hey, I've got all of these things and I have them organized. Now, when you have like the conversations you were having yesterday, you've got 3 and 4 and 5 plus MSPs and everybody's bringing their own stuff. Everybody's bringing their own toolbox with their things in. And so, again, I think that really lends to the conversation on how do we figure out what it is that we need and what is it that we don't need? And how do we manage that? Because it's a lot more complex than I think people give it credit for.
Yeah, it's interesting. When we look at kind of the buy and build strategy, there's the centralized and decentralized, right? And some
Yeah.
mandate, you're all moving to our tooling, but more and more we're seeing the decentralized, right? And that's part of the earnouts, ownership led as they move forward and so forth, and it all makes sense. The problem with tool sprawl is that you inherently create risk in your own business.
100%.
And part of that comes from the fact that you can't expect your engineers to be experts on 20 different tools, right? And so, and the other side of it is we only are able to attribute the power of that tool at 20 or 30 or 40% because we're managing so many different solutions. So we lose a little bit of that. And then ultimately from an executive level as a service provider, you lose out on buying power, right? I mean, economies of scale, if you're dealing with 1 or 2 vendors versus 7 or 8, you have buying power, right? And that allows you then to manage your margins and your profitability and looking at your top and bottom line. And
I'm going to
so,
reverse that because that was like one of our last talking points. But my
oh, did I already
conversation,
go there? Sorry.
no, we're jumping all over the place
Yeah,
because I had a conversation with people because you have to determine how many eggs do you want in the basket.
yeah,
Because that's sort of the thing is you can have one basket with 2 or 3 eggs in it, and because of that, you have more leverage. I
yeah,
have more to go to you and say, David, we're fully on with Enable, and we're acquiring 2 more businesses, so we're going to add X amount of endpoints and everything that we're going to have to manage. And I have more leeway to say, I really need you guys to help me out to be able to ingest all of these and not have to just like double and triple my bill. So that's one of the good things about it. One of the other things about it though is that you have less. I tell people, especially if you have different verticals where you need to focus on different things. So you have to sort of have that conversation. Do I need a basket with 2 or 3 eggs in it? Or do I need a basket with 7 or 8 eggs in it? And I tell people all MSPs are different. There is no one size fits all. I literally just wrote a blog post on this like a couple of weeks ago because every MSP is a little bit different, but you have to I think everybody needs to evaluate the same. What you need to be able to make your business case might be different than what the business case needs to be from a mega MSP that has 5 or 6 under its umbrella.
yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. Look at, I mean, as much as I would love everybody to single source everything from me as a vendor, that's not a realistic statement. Now, I don't know if
Absolutely
my
not.
I don't know if my CEO would like me saying that. But I'm going to say it. But
Yes.
ultimately, it's true though. Like when you look at a lot of service providers today as they're moving up market and they're moving into co-managed, right? And they're now
Yes.
into the mid enterprise and enterprise. And when we look at new regulatory and compliance requirements, there's a big change out there where I I will not offer every tooling piece that they need. I will not have every piece of software or process or requirement that they have. Do I have partnerships? Probably. But I can't be a single source vendor and there's going to be customization out there. So to your point, Brooke, you do want to look at that, that 2 or 3, right? That you kind of need that are kind of your core. And really understanding, in your business, having the ability to go to your end customer and say, look, we're mandating a change. And the reason we're mandating a change is because it will reduce your risk in hours and I can give you a better economy of scale. Right. And so many times I find, and even yesterday, surprisingly, when I was in this room with these extremely large service providers, many of them saying, we don't like going to our customers and telling them we're making a change. But why? Because
See,
you
I think
can't
that's
allow
just
them to have a
having the wrong
technology.
conversation,
Yeah.
because if you're afraid to go say that, I think that the conversation you're having is not the right conversation. And I'd also, again, completely off topic here, I think it also goes to the fact that you're not meeting with your clients enough. Because if
Yeah.
they're seeing me on a regular basis as the VCIO, the account manager, whatever you want to call it at your MSP, then when I come in with something, and again, I'm big on VCIO shouldn't sell. I got in a big dust up on Reddit a couple of months ago about that. My job is to guide and advise you as your MSP. So I'm going to my client telling you these are the things we need to be careful for. So when
Yeah.
I'm mandating a change, obviously it's the delivery. I'm saying these are the things that we are doing to improve ourselves, which are going to improve you, your security posture, making sure we're reducing that risk. But if you're scared to do it, then I don't think you're having conversations often enough because you should never be afraid to go to your client or your partners and saying, I'm doing something to make you better.
No, absolutely, and it's a lot of times I think it's the like it's funny, like you can talk to a $500,000 MSP, or you can talk to a $50 million MSP, right? And a lot of the same concerns still sit there, depending on the
It's
people that
still
you're
there.
talking to. Yeah, and it's but we made the recommendation. You made the recommendation, but people don't realize that we're at the fastest pace of change in the history of time in terms of technology. Things are getting better. Things are changing. Cyber risk is advancing. So as a service provider, you have to make continual changes at your customer, right? And you have to have the ability to walk in and say, this is now better. This is the
Because
better
you have to keep
opportunity.
up. You have to
Yeah,
keep up with the
correct.
change and the risk is coming, I mean, second by second. I mean, you can watch some of the risk analysis channels and stuff that are out there on Reddit and everything. I mean, it's literally like minute by minute, somebody else is popping off with something. And it's our job as the MSP to make sure that we're trying to protect you as best we can.
Oh, for sure. And you know what? It's also about capability and outcomes. I think a lot of times for years as an industry, both as vendors and as service providers, we resold software, right? And that's listen, that's what we do at Enable, right? We sell software. But
Mhm.
but as a service provider, you take my software because it provides an outcome for you. And that's the
I think
same
you lose
message.
sight of that. I
Yeah.
think there's not enough people that understand that, David. I think there's
No,
not an I think they go for something that solves a particular problem that they
correct.
think they have versus what is the outcome? What is it that we're trying to figure out? Because that's what you should be paying for.
Yeah.
And I don't think enough people understand that.
No, I mean, like we do a study with Canalys each year called the Horizons Report, and one of the things that we found post-COVID was this massive shift in the understanding of what a service provider does for a business, right? So the end customer realized, oh wow, you're actually protecting my revenue streams. Like this is
Mhm.
amazing, right? And so I should be making the investments that that you're recommending. It's okay that that investment module and that investment schema changes on a regular basis because new things become available. And so, but it's not about I additionally add something. It is I'm bringing something in, but probably removing something so that I'm stable in the way that I'm managing that tooling, but at the same time maintaining my profitability and my margins, right? So it's
But I
not
think
a
also you
software-based
have to
model.
have the relationship with your vendor. So this is why I tell people when these account managers are calling you, they're not calling you to upsell you every single time. They're calling to check in on you because we know how much you're using our tools or not. If we see that you're not logging in, if we see that everybody at your MSP is not using for whatever the tool or solution it is that you have, that is a concern for me because I need to make sure I tell people I want you to wring every last drop out of Rev.io. Every single thing you can do with the solution, I want you to
Yeah.
get every last drop out of that thing. So you have to have those relationships because what you're talking about is being able to replace things is if you're having regular conversations with your vendors, again, if you're the two eggs in the basket or whatever it is, I should be able to have a conversation with my account manager and say, hey, these are the tools that I've got. I understand that y'all have got some new stuff, whatever. Is there anything that I'm going to be able to replace here and come out better on the long run? Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes the other financial thing is the labor pieces. People don't think of
Mhm.
labor that we spend on internal tools as money, but that is money out the window because that guy or girl is not working tickets. They're not working projects. If they're maintaining tools that I've got, that's another expense in addition to the license count. And how much does that take for me to do versus is if we partner with somebody that again is sort of like what you said, I want the people that are using Rev.io or able to be successful. That's the end
Yeah.
game is I don't want to sell you something and you just write me a check every month. I want you to use the heck out of this software. Use it for everything that you possibly can. Come back to me and say, hey, Brooke, this is some cool stuff that we're doing. If y'all could do this, this would be really awesome because that's where we get a lot of our innovations and it's where we get a lot of our feature updates and things that we want to make new and different. It comes from our partners, but you got to have those relationships with your vendor. So you really got to choose your tool stack wisely because you got to go with a vendor that has the capability and the capacity to do that for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, look at there's a massive change coming in this industry with AI, right? And I'm not listen, in no way am I saying AI is replacing people. It is not going to
It
happen.
is
What
not.
it's going to no, what's going to happen is AI is being built into a lot of different tooling, like a lot of different areas that we do as vendors, right? To allow you to do more, right? And be able to manage in different areas and spread out across those areas and things along those lines. So it's, think about it this way, right? If you've got basically a digital coworker that sits beside you on your whatever platform of software that you're using, and it allows you at the same time to manage that platform, but also go manage other areas of your business, that's a win. That means that you now
Absolutely.
have the ability, you've increased everything in terms of profitability within your organization and your productivity. But I think a lot of us are looking at it wrong, right? Like we're saying AI is going to do everything. It's not. AI
Nope.
is a contributing factor to create what I call a knowledge worker. And I don't want to get into the big AI debate, but it is we have to think about our tooling in a different way now. And the advancements are coming so much faster that as an organization, don't be opposed to going back to your customers to say, we found better, right? We found better that mitigates your risk and does this because many cases, what I
I
find
think that
is
should be a feather in your cap. That should be a selling point that I'm always looking for something to be
100%.
better. I'm not going to just sit on the 7 tools that I had 10 years ago,
Yeah.
that we're constantly looking for things that are going to be better for both of us in the long run.
Well, no, exactly. And you know what? In a lot of the cases, what's interesting is you may actually go in with a slight price increase by a new tooling. However, the outcome and the result to the end customer is a massive improvement in ROI for them in terms of productivity or risk
Absolutely.
mitigation. And I
Happier
think
clients, happier life, less
ex-
tickets, less problems, my friend.
exactly. And I think that's where a lot of MSPs miss. Like, it's a big thing I've said for years, and I think you've heard me say it is the number one cost in any business is human capital. Number two is technology.
Yep.
But what we don't do is translate the technology benefit and the outcomes to the improvement in the HR costs and productivity of employees and the revenue per hour. If we do that, you'll win all day. Your customers won't worry about a marginal increase in the software cost. Oh, so my employees now are generating 100,000 on average an hour in revenue, right? Or 100,000 a day or whatever it might
Yeah,
be. And now I'm going to make it 110,000 by bringing a new piece of software in. That's a win-win, right? But,
absolutely.
but if you're using 14 different pieces of software to try and achieve the exact same thing, you're not getting any win out of that. There's no marginal gain, right? You're
Because
actually
it's
losing. You're
labor
losing at
cost.
the
If
lower
I'm
end.
using 14 tools, that's 14 different things that we got to log into. It's 14 different things I got to maintain. It's 14 different things that need security patches. It's 14 different things that could break. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not advocating for putting just like the one egg in the one basket, but you really have to talk about that. And another thing is I think people forget about is because we focus so much on the tools like Rev.io, we got a PSA. Y'all got a PSA. You got an RMM. You got all kinds of security stuff or
Yeah.
whatever. But there's other tools that are there that everybody else at the MSP uses. You have to think about the QuickBooks. You have to think about the quoting system. You
Mhm.
have to think about what are the sales guys and girls using to produce orders and quotes. How are we doing inventory? There's other things because we get so focused on the MSP because we just think like tech stack. So we just think, you know, firewall applications. How are we managing the switches? How are we doing this? And there's so many other things that go into managing and running that MSP. If you're a larger MSP, what are you using to manage like your applicant tracking system? That's a piece of software that you guys are going to pay for. It
Yeah.
connects into your PSA probably because you're probably hiring people based on tickets. Tickets come in and those are your new applicants. And I think when people do a tool stack analysis, one of the big misses that I see is that they don't invite everybody into the room.
Correct.
They just invite the tech guys into the room, and they forget about all the other people that are there. I mean, marketing, they got Canva, they got all kinds of stuff out there running around. We got sales stuff, we got HubSpot, we got Salesforce. All those things are tools that we pay for. They all integrate into our network, and all of them should, in my opinion, you should be evaluating every single one of those at a minimum annually, and you have to get those people into the room.
I agree, and I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
And this I won't name
I
the
love
name of
good
the
stories.
customer, obviously,
You
but
and I have got some good ones.
story. Yeah, I have lots of stories, but I'll give you one. So I worked with a customer about a year and a bit ago. 14 acquisitions in 7 years.
Okay.
Fully doing the integrations into the business. But the problem was when they did the integrations, they integrated the acquired companies into the business, which was great, but they
Okay.
didn't do a vendor consolidation. So at the end of it, we sat down with them, and now there's a multitude of different areas in their business. Part of it is managed services, but they were at just over 400 vendors with the goal to get down to
What the
200.
what?
Yeah, now
Holy
very large org, but their goal was to get down to 200. Still not enough. But talking to their COO at the time and their CTO, they actually admitted that they didn't know why they were actually paying some vendors and what the software actually did, right?
see?
And so you're right. That's why the annual or even more frequent evaluation should be done. Look at,
Yep.
I say to our customers, you might be happy with Enable, you might love our RMM, you love N-Central, you love my AdLumen, my Cove, whatever it is. It's okay though to evaluate what's in the market to make sure it's still right. But to your
Absolutely.
but to your point, Brooke, they don't bring the right people in the room, right? And too often it's segregated where I'm going to allow a small group to make a technology decision,
I
but
know.
then
The
the
RMM guy, he's
commercial,
gonna fight me in
yeah,
the parking lot for this software that I don't want to let him have again.
exactly. And then the commercials go to a leadership team who have no understanding of what the value that
Yep.
the software brings, right? There's a disconnect there, right? Everybody's got to be involved. Like in our organization, if we're buying new software, it is not a single source decision. There's a group of people who are involved, right? And more, I'm finding that we're being brought in to sit at the table. Does that mean that we always win? No, we don't always win. But a lot of times I sit at that table and they go, well, this is what I'm looking for as an outcome. And I'm very honest and I say, I can't give you that. I'm not the right partner for you, but here is somebody I know you should be dealing with because I'm
But
not
I'm
going
gonna
to
tell you
sell
what, my friend,
paperwork.
you and I are in the minority. The number of people that I talk to, because I'm on the road about as much as you, and
Yeah,
I will tell, and I'm honest, and I will tell you, this is not a me thing. I can't fix this. This is not something that I'm gonna be. I understand what you're looking for, but it's
yeah,
not me. Let me go find somebody else. And that's why I think it's again that you've got to have the relationships with the right people at the right vendors. that have the ability to say, this is not me. I can't fix this problem. I need to introduce you to David over at Enable. He's got something that's going to be able to fix this. Let's walk over there for an event. Let me make an introduction and I'll get you guys off and running and go on about your business. Because the worst thing I can do is sell somebody to sell them something. And I know that it's not going to fix what they have going on. It's not
Yeah.
going to give them the outcome that they're looking for. And I think that's just a really crappy thing to do, if I'm being honest. I
Well,
hate that. I cannot
it's just
stand
churn.
that.
You're just creating your own churn, right? Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. And I think a lot of times you're right. Like, you made a really key point, Brooke, was about the relationship with the vendor. If you've got, I mean, look at, I sell a backup product, right? And I know on average out there, when I deal with an average service, like when we call the average service provider, the vast majority of the market, they've got
Yeah.
anywhere between 6 and 11 different backup solutions across their customers.
Yep.
If you've got 6, 7, 8, 10, 11 backup solutions, you can't have a relationship with a vendor. You don't, because you have no clout with them. Like, you're buying a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit
Yeah,
there.
you're too spread out. But also, you also don't have any clout with the guy or the girl that's doing your backup checks every day. Because
Yeah,
that's low man on the totem pole. That's me when I roll up as a tier one and I first get there. That means I got 6 to 11 different things I got to freaking log into every single day and get that stuff done. And I don't think we think about it. It's like, I call it employee happiness. I know people are like, oh my gosh, Brooke's going to like hug it out or whatever. It's not. But I need to keep my employees happy.
yeah,
And rather having them log into 6 to 11 things every single day to check the stinking backups that none of us want to do anyway, but it has to be done because I tell people it's the one thing that could get you sued or fired or both
yeah.
as an MSP. You really need to narrow that down. And again, I think to your point is to get somebody that you can go with because y'all have Cove. Okay, sit down and talk to people about it. This is what I got going on. These are the things that I can do for you guys. And also, again, from the other part, it's the labor standpoint. Is it going to save me time on labor? Because people sometimes they don't equate labor with like basically one back revenue because it's money that I'm saving that this person's not stuck doing that ticky tack task all the time.
Yeah. Well, and I think going back to your point about the employee side, right? It is actually a really important one. As much as somebody might have the capability to manage 11 different solutions, as much as they don't want to, they're
Who
doing
wants
it
to?
because it's part of their job, right?
Yep.
If there's an issue with one of those solutions that creates a loss in backup or a loss of data or whatever the solution might be, that there's a risk that's ensued or there's a breach of some sort, the problem is then basically the blame falls to that employee, but you put them in that position in the first place that they weren't the
100%.
expert.
100%.
So, it's an unfair position whenever you think about it that way.
And I also tell people that you also I think MSPs in general, I tell people when you buy a tool or a solution from a vendor, that vendor should be onboarding you. Do
Correct.
not onboard yourself. You are not the expert in that tool or that solution. The vendor is. Let the vendor help you get it fully 100%, not 40, not 60. It's been 18 months and Brooke, we're kind of 60% of the way there because you don't have time and you don't have the knowledge to do it. You need people working projects. You buy something from Rev.io, let the onboarding team onboard all of your stuff for you.
Yeah.
I also tell people find vendors that offer training and education. Let the vendor train and educate all your employees, the new employees that come on. Put them in that education program, whether it's online, whether it's webinars, whether it's like forums, whatever it is. Let the vendor train your new employees, and then you just sort of fine tune it for whatever you have at your MSP. And I think that's why people have to be really careful when they're evaluating that tool stack because that's something that they don't think about. And to your point, these people that are growing and scaling, because at some point you've got to have an exit plan, right? You're either going to sell and you've got to make your MSP really attractive, or you're going to merge together. I've seen a lot of those lately. It's 5, 6, 7 different MSPs. They've been in peer groups and now they're like, we're going to form a mega MSP. We have to have some sort of plan for that. And the plan to grow and scale has to include education because, again, now all of a sudden I've got this poor tier one engineer managing 11 different backup solutions. One of them didn't pop off last night. Now we're missing something. The client has put a ticket in. They need something from the backup from last night. I don't have it. And now I feel like what is the tier one? When in reality, it was leadership that led us down this path to where this tier one is now somehow responsible for these 11 tools when leadership should have made a decision.
No, and you know what? And you kind of made a key point as well too. The education component's massive. Like when most service providers buy a piece of tooling, they implement it. They could be onboarded by the vendor, they onboard themselves, whatever it is. The issue is they continue to use it in that capacity ongoing. So a year later, even though there's been as vendors, we all do updates, we bring in new features, we do
Yeah,
all this. Are your team aware of those? And they're not using them. And so
they're
often I get
not.
it, you
And I
know,
see that so often.
yeah,
Holy
and I mean,
smokes.
you hear it, and I get a call and somebody says, "Your product doesn't do this." And I say, "Our product's been doing that for 6.5 months." And they go, "Well, we didn't know that." And I said, "But why is your team not engaged with our team where we have regular
Exactly.
webinars, we
Your
have the
account
nerds
manager
training?"
is reaching
Yeah.
out. You're getting those emails, buddy.
Yeah, yeah, we've got RSS feeds, we've got everything, we've got Pendo in the product, like everything, and my my head nerds are out there doing regular sessions, going, "Here's what's new in this piece of software." And when I look back and I go, nobody on your team showed up to anything. So you're now when you onboarded the tool, you were using 80, 90, 100% of the power, but now you're using 40% and you believe that you have an unhappy team with the tooling, but you actually don't, is that you haven't kept abreast of what's available to you. And the
That's
cost
why I
of
tell people
change.
you've got to respond to your account managers when they're sending the emails. You've got to read the newsletters that are coming out, especially because to your point, Rev.io and Enable both, we spend a tremendous amount of money
Yeah,
in making sure that our partners have the availability for the education, for the webinars, for your RSS feed, for your head nerds that are out there running around teaching everybody thing. You and I have jobs because of this. This is our job to make sure
yeah,
people are connected and
yeah.
plugged in. And so when the company is making that type of an investment, that should let you know that your education and your full use of our solution is of the utmost importance of this company. Again, because what we don't want you to do is just like write us a check every month and not use it because we can see it. I mean, I promise you, we can make sure that you're using the stuff. And we're like, yeah, you were like rocking out of the gate, but now you're 40%. And we got all this new cool backup stuff that you got going on. We've got better ways to monitor, manage, and maintain it. But y'all haven't met with your account manager in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And
Telling you and what?
I'll get a little bit controversial as well too, maybe if you're all right with that. But
I
you're
love
right.
spicy.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of times what I find is service providers, they look into their business and they go, okay, we're not getting what we want out of the tooling. Okay, so you didn't work with your vendor and probably the capabilities there. That cost of change is massive. But the
Yes.
second part is many times what I find is they're having other issues in their business, like new customer acquisition or expansion or a waning in profitability, and they believe a tool change will fix their business.
Oh,
That is the biggest mistake I see out there where people
yep.
spend 100, 200,000 switching a platform and then they go, "Oh, my business hasn't improved." Well, you use it as a scapegoat, right? Instead of looking internally and saying the real problem is in my processes and the way that I'm doing things. So I think a lot of times we blame tooling when it's not the tooling is the issue. It could be the vast amount of tools that we
Well, I
have.
tell people all the time, I have the best PSA on the planet. It will not fix the people problem.
Correct.
If you have a people problem, we have to fix that first. So the best tool, and you can just chunk everything out the window and go spend another 200 grand on something else. It's not going to fix the root of the problem.
It's absolutely it, right? And I mean that's really what it comes down to is when you look inside out and you do a 360 review on your own business, it makes you realize very quickly that you're not utilizing all of the available resources sitting in front of you,
Yep.
right? And to be able to utilize resources in a proper way is to not have 50 vendors. You can't because
100%.
you can't talk to them all, right? And I mean, you got to figure out the right mix for you and your business, right? And then manage from there. So it all depends on, like, I mean, listen, as you scale a business, your vendors, your vendor counts are going to grow. That's fine. We understand that, but you can't allow it to tip over the point that becomes unmanageable. And I think that's a lot of what I see is so often lately. And it is one of my top conversations in the last year, Brooke, which is interesting is
Okay.
we're so top heavy on vendors. We don't know how to get out of
Oh
this
yeah.
hole. Yeah. We don't know how
And
to get out of this
they
hole.
don't know how to get out of it at this point because they're in so deep. So that was one of our talking points today as well is the contracts and the agreements. Again, it's something that's going to be controversial. People don't like to talk about it, but you better understand how those work. You better understand what it looks like when you get in. I call it, it's like a marriage. It's easy to get into, hard to get out of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Easy to put your name on that dotted line. Now all of a sudden you don't want to be in that relationship anymore. That can be a whole bunch of legalese and all kinds of rigmarole on the back end. So make sure that you're paying attention to those things so that you know sort of what you're signing up for. But I want to go back. You had talked about the businesses that they've put in a new tool to try to fix the problems. I think this goes back to one of your original points is what is the outcome?
Yeah.
What is it that
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out? And again, I think people just don't lean heavily enough on the vendors because again, you and I mean, we have a lot of experience, and there's a handful of us out there, but we work for some pretty large companies. You need to reach out to us because this
Mhm.
is part of what I mean, what you do. You met with 6 MSPs yesterday. This is part what you and I get paid for. If we need to come help y'all have a conversation, if we need to get on a call and run through some of your business processes that you have going on and figure out sort of where those gaps are, we have the ability to do that because this is what we've done for years. Is so yes, we work for Enable, yes, we work for Rev.io, but we understand the totality of your MSP business, and other vendors have those people as well. I was at an event in Costa Mesa at an ASCII event a couple of months ago, and there was a gentleman that was out there. He was one of the MSPs in the room, and he was asking for help on how to do marketing. He was a smaller MSP, and one of the vendors in the room raised their hand, and they were like, "Absolutely, we have canned emails that you can use. We have content. We have things that you can white label. Put your logo on it, all that kind of stuff." And this guy was like, "I had no idea."
Yeah.
And this
Yeah.
is a large vendor. And I was just like, that a lot of people use. And I was like, this is why y'all just need to ask the people on the phone calls when you're doing those meetings, because yes, we can help you with that particular tool, but we can also have those larger business conversations like that you were having with this group last night. And I know that it was a group last night, but this is basically what you do all the time, is that you're
Yeah.
meeting with groups of MSPs, or you're meeting with the small ones, the big ones, the medium ones, to figure out how you can help them move that business forward in sort of an overall holistic way.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, it's I think a lot of times that there's in the marketplace when we look at it today, there's a lot of disdain for vendors in some sense that we're just there to sell. The problem is what I think most service providers don't understand is that we're not successful without them being successful, right? If their business isn't growing, we're not growing as vendors. So we're not doing it in an intentional way. It's we truly want you to succeed. Now, if I benefit off of that, happy days. But I don't always. Like I work
Yeah,
with
like I said, this is not a me thing. I can't
no,
fix it. I need to take you to David, see if he has something that
correct.
can help you fix this problem.
Yeah, that's exactly it, right? But we truly want the market to be healthy because the market being healthy is good for everybody. And so I
100%.
think yeah, I think that's the big difference that people miss is that you're just trying to sell me something. No, I'm probably not actually trying to sell you something. Like that event I did yesterday, right? Billion dollars in revenue in the room. Not at one point did we ever talk product. There was no product discussion brought up. It was all around what are the new emerging services? Where's the new opportunity? Where are we struggling? Where do we see risk? We have a bunch of peers having this conversation. It was amazing, right? What naturally comes out of it is, oh, who do you use for this vendor? Who do you use? Oh, we've had a problem with this, or we have too many here. But that's
And they
peer to
talk
peer.
good and bad. That's why you gotta be really careful
Correct.
when you're working with these MSPs, because it's not nearly as big a community as everybody thinks it is.
Correct.
So it
Yeah.
goes both ways. If you've given them a great experience, they're gonna share it. If you give them a crappy experience, they're also sharing that, my friend.
Well, absolutely, right? And for us, we don't even get involved in the product discussions at the events like that we had yesterday. But it's I allow them to talk. They're peer to peer. They're the experts, right? Like as a vendor, I'm not an MSP. I'm a vendor to MSPs, right? So do
Mhm.
I intricately understand their business? No, not 100%, but I know it really well. But I'm there to help guide, right? And there's components I can help you with. There's components that I can't. But if you're sitting there saying I'm going to spread my a lot of times I think what MSPs think is I'll spread my risk by having a multitude of vendors, right? And so it's I've only got a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. You've actually created
I think that's
a finite
flawed
amount
thinking.
more
I
risk.
think that's
Yeah,
flawed thinking. I think that's the
it is.
exact opposite.
Yeah, yeah. But I hear
Um,
it. I hear it, right?
Absolutely. And when I was on a panel at that ASCII event, and the last thing they asked everybody on the panel was, "What's one piece of advice that you would give to every MSP in the room when they're talking with the vendors?" And my advice to them is when you're talking to a vendor at an event, on the phone, whatever, if they don't first ask you about your MSP, that is a red flag, and you should
Yeah,
keep walking.
yeah,
Because I don't know if I can help you if I don't understand how your MSP works. I need to know, how are you built? How are your people built? Do you have verticals? How big are you? How many endpoints? How many clients? How many locations? I need to know all of those things to figure out if I have anything that's going to be able to help you at all. And if a vendor doesn't first ask you about your MSP, you should keep walking, because they don't understand how you work. And every MSP, I think, again, I'm a firm believer, they're all a little bit different. Your people and your clients are the two things that make you different from everybody else. We can have the same tools, but our processes are different, all of those things. But the vendor needs to ask you about your MSP and how you work. And then let's see if we can sort of work together and collaborate and figure out how we're going to get to the outcome of what it is that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, I mean, look at when you engage with a vendor and you take on some of their tooling, the tooling is a very small component of what you're actually
100%.
signing for. You're actually signing a partnership, right? A partnership to work together for mutual
Very.
benefit and mutual success, right? And so many think of it differently as you're just a vendor who's selling me something and you're getting some money out of me. That's not the case. That's not the way that we look at it as vendors. We truly like we're very big at Enable on partnership is massive to us, right? And if you're not as invested in working with us as we are with you, we're probably not a good fit. And that's okay, right? I mean, if you just want to go out and get the cheapest price, because typically I'm not going to be the cheapest, right? And you just want to figure out a way that you can get something quick and easy and throw it out into the market and never have to deal with us again, we're probably not a good fit because we want to be there to help you drive that success and use the tooling in a correct way. Because if not, I'm going to lose you in less than a year, anyways.
100%. And
Yeah.
that again, it's when you're just going for cheap, easy, I just want to fix this one little bitty thing over here versus having those big picture
Yeah.
conversations. That's going to cost you, I don't know how many times X on the back end, because now you're going to have to go get something else. Your team is going to have to be trained up. You're going to have to rip it out. You're going to have to replace it with something else. Now you're onboarding something again. And that's all those labor costs all
Yeah.
over again for something else, because again, you're not thinking about the big picture outcome. And again, that's why I've really got to, you have to partner with people that want that relationship. Again, this is why you and I have jobs where we're at. And that was one of the sole reasons that they hired me here at Rev.io, is because they needed somebody to connect with the community and talk about the relationships. And again, a lot of times I'm on, like, I get on these sales calls, the discos, the demos with the salespeople. It's literally like I'm just giving them free consulting. I'm
Yeah.
asking you about your MSP. What do you have going on? Have you thought about this? This is really going to be a problem if we don't address this now. Has absolutely nothing to do with the Rev.io PSA. It is about your MSP and helping you figure out these are some issues and we're going to need to address this sooner rather than later. But again, I think it's, you've got to, I think it's, I agree with you. It's a two-way street. Every person that wants to buy our software may not be the best fit for us, and I think it's okay to tell people no. Again, that's not going to be like a hot take, but I think it's okay to say we're just not a good fit. Maybe you should go look elsewhere, and I don't think that's a bad thing on either part.
It's not. You know what? It's better in the end for everybody. And look at one of the things I say to service providers all the time when I'm having this kind of vendor consolidation discussion is look at what are your key pillars in your business, right? So you look at your monitoring and your management, you look at your cyber, you look at your data protection, you look at your billing, your quoting, all of those. Like so you have your
Mhm.
pillars, right? Now,
Yep.
what sits in those pillars, right? And how big is that pillar? Because the bigger it is, the more risk you're taking on, right? So you have to figure
100%.
out what's the right quotient of those, right? And then also, how do the pillars talk to each other? Because there has to be an umbrella to it all. And I think
That's
somebody
another
missed
thing that
that.
was on our schedule today. Integrations is
Yeah.
when you have those integrations, because that's also can be a point of failure and a point of weakness and a point of risk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's you have to have your tool and have the ability to have some form of talking to each other, right? Because if it's
Mhm.
not, there's a problem there, and you have a gap in insight and data flow and ingestion. And today's risk that sits out there for every service provider, because you own the like you kind of own the keys to the kingdom. It's you've got to manage that expectation and that risk, not for yourself only, but for your customers, right? And the more insight that you have, the more productivity that you gain, but the more power that you pull out of tooling, right? To have it talk to each other through the ecosystem. And I think that's a really important point that a lot of people miss. It's, oh, I've got this tool over here, but nobody can do anything with it. It's kind of standalone, and does its own thing. Then why do you have a tool that doesn't talk to the rest of your systems? That's a problem, you
It's
know?
like having an RMM that doesn't put tickets in the PSA, for crying out loud. What's
Correct.
the what's the point? And I really like you were talking about the pillars. Because I think if people, again, we're going to give them the spreadsheet at the end, so they're going to be able to see this because it's broken down by category. If you have a whole bunch in one category, that's that big pillar and it's top heavy, and you need to be careful with that one because that one also equals more risk.
Yeah.
And risk is the name of the game right now. That's where you've really got to pay attention to stuff and be able to, again, reach out to people like yourself and say, look, we've got this one pillar. It's only got seven things in it, but those seven things are big boy status tools and solutions for us, and we are very concerned about the risk. So I think sometimes it's being, as an MSP, it's also being transparent with the vendors that you work with and just saying we are concerned about the risk. We are not sure if we are doing this right, or have we thought about everything? And I think it's okay to ask that. It doesn't mean that that's like a point of weakness or whatever. It's just raising your hand and saying I need some help.
Well, you know what? It ask for help. Everybody does, right? I mean, look at the one I talked about, with the 400 and some vendors, right? I mean, That's a massive organization of 197 million pound turnover, right? And
Yeah.
they came and was I the only one at the table? No, I sat at the table sometimes with my competition. That's okay.
Mhm.
But you know what? Our
Good.
competition was sitting there going, "Hey, I'm really good at this." And I'm going, "You know what? They actually have a really good tool." Right? Or
Yeah.
I can do it as well, but what's the right fit for you? Where do you sit today? Where do your economics sit in terms of what you're looking for? And it's, a lot of times, yes, you're on your own and you have one component of it, but we're there to support. Like, we're there to help and drive you to the right point
Absolutely.
where you are. And you're right. The risk today is something that I think too many service providers take on undue risk that they shouldn't, right? And what they don't realize is when something does break or happens or there's a breach, because you were negligent in the way you thought about your tooling, your stack, or the right capabilities, or being able to manage a piece of software that unfortunately wasn't managed correctly and allowed something to happen, you are at fault. Right?
100%.
And I'm sorry, you are at fault. I know you're gonna say, "Well, my customer will blame me anyways," but most cases, you're not at fault if your customer blames you if they got breached because you made a bunch of recommendations and they didn't take the investment to do it. But in those cases, you could be at fault, right? And that's a very serious situation as a service provider that, you have to think about. So it's all about being able to manage internal expectation across your teams, your business, your profitability, your top and bottom line, but at the same time, what's the best experience I can give to my end customer?
And the risk factor also, when you're partnering with the right vendors, they should be able to tell you what their security stack is, what their security posture is, what their security
Yeah,
standards are. If they are not willing to give you that information, you need to just like start walking out the door.
yeah.
Because to your point, that is risk that that service provider is taking on. Now I am passing that risk on to my clients and partners and customers because I didn't do my due diligence with that vendor to find out where they are security wise. And I also tell them, again, it's to your point of a bunch of vendors working together. So when I sit down with somebody, I'm like, okay, this is what we are. We're your PSA. What other vendors are you using? I need to make sure that that risk is managed if we are going to integrate with any of those. If we're integrated with Enable, for example, and your RMM is kicking tickets into our PSA, I need to make sure that that integration is rock solid and that we've basically, I
Mhm.
mean, down as low as you can. Nothing can be zero. Have we reduced that risk as much as possible between these two vendors? And that's why you have to have people that are, I can reach out and say, David, this is not a me thing, but I need some of your head security nerd and my head security nerd to get on a call and
Yeah.
let's make sure that we are like talking the same language on this integration because we want to make sure that we are reducing that risk down as much as possible. So that's why you've got to have vendors that are willing to work with other vendors because those integrations are natural. If we don't have it, then again, you've got data here and nothing's talking. So you're not getting anything out of it.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people in the market realize that as vendors, how much we all talk to each other, right? Like,
100%.
it's, our CISO, Dave McKinnon, we call him DMAC. He says it best. He goes like, cybersecurity is a team sport, right? Like, Dave talks to the
Yes.
CISOs of some of our biggest competition on a regular basis. Why? None of us want to have an issue, right? We all want to help each other, right? And it's got to be the same way. Like, and I think the community is really good around it in terms of service providers and talking about that. But I think a lot of times I think the vendors are so detached from it, and we're not. We're actually involved in it, and we want to be involved, and we want to help you mitigate that risk, and we want to help you drive to the best economics in your business. Of course, that's what we want you to have, right? Because as you're more profitable, it means that you can grow, you can scale, and you can do more. And but it's the same for us, right? As vendors, we also have to be profitable, right? And so
Absolutely.
because then we can make the right investments to bring you the features and the tooling that you want and mitigate the risks and bring the right security protocols in place. So, I mean, there's a cost to all of us, but it's about sharing that and understanding, okay, if I've got the right stuff in place, if I've got the right relationships and we're having the right conversation, it's very rare you're going to lose, right? If there's a
Agreed.
breakdown in that relationship at some point, then you either fix it or then you can make a conscious decision to say, we might have to make a move.
100%.
Yeah.
David, thank you for joining me today, my friend. I really appreciate it. And this might be really popular. You and I are going to have to take this show on the road because you and I could talk for days and days about all of
Let's
our
do it.
MSPs
Let's do
that
it.
we've got
Yeah.
going on. Thank you for everybody for joining us today. Another edition of MSP Unfiltered. We are going to give you guys the QR code to be able to download that tool stack analysis spreadsheet as well. And then we also have, if any of this resonated with you, if you want to connect with David or myself, we've got QR codes on the last slide that we're going to give to you guys. As y'all see, message David. He responds 24 hours a day, I think, on LinkedIn and text for anybody that needs help. He's a great resource in the community. Please reach out. If you're not connected with him on LinkedIn, please get connected with him. Stop by and see him at the booth or at a lobby bar where he and I meet most of the times anyway. And both of us are here to help you. Everybody have a great day. And thank you so much for joining us. Dave, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brooke.